Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Blair, for going over everything there is about EHON and multiplexes, laying the foundation for me, so I could really sort of just get into what the multiplex monitoring program is all about. And just to get a sense of the audience here, I wanted to see, just by a show of hands, how many people here have worked on a multiplex or know someone that's worked on a multiplex in the city of Toronto? Okay, quite a few people. I was going to ask, keep your hand up if you enjoyed that process of going through the building permit process, but a lot of the hands have come down. I expected that anyways. But not to make light of that, the city is very cognizant of the challenges that industry folks go through when it comes to trying to build missing middle projects at the city. We're coming out to these events, we're hearing from professionals, and we're doing what we can to see how we can make some tweaks and make some changes to make things a little bit easier for folks trying to build in the city. And just one little anecdote to start with. Just a couple weeks ago, I attended a city councilor residents association meeting about EHON projects and housing changes across the city. Ward 2, Councillor Holiday. There was about 400 people in the audience, and he was really just telling everybody about what changes the city has done in the last number of years. It's coming down the pipeline with the sixplex recommendation. And there was one individual there, 29 years old. He stood up and he said that I'm currently living at home with my parents. I'm an engineer. I'm looking for housing options in this city, and there's nothing out there that's affordable. I do want to live in the neighborhood close to my parents, but it's increasingly for me to do that, and I have to look at moving and leaving the city of Toronto. And there were a number of people in that room who booed and said terrible things under that 29-year-old who's trying to look for more housing. He was supportive of multiplexes and sixplexes. So, you know, that kind of hit home. I do think that we're planning for the next generation. We're trying to introduce these new housing types within neighborhoods in a gradual and incremental way that could still protect that sort of character of the area while still adding more density. So again, Daniel Kolominsky, and I've been leading the multiplex monitoring program at the city. Next slide. So we're gonna go through a little bit about the methodology of the multiplex monitoring program, what went into our review process, what we looked at in order to draw conclusions on trends that we were seeing. I'll go into a little bit of the data about our initial key findings, and give you some visuals and some graphics of what we're seeing with multiplex implementation across the city. I'll touch on the draft zoning bylaw amendments that we're looking to bring forward in June, and talk a little bit about what our next steps are. So the introduction of the monitoring program really began from May 2023 when City Council adopted staff's recommendations for permitting multiplexes citywide across neighborhoods. This is just an excerpt of one of the recommendations from Council. So I've highlighted that Council directed staff to monitor the implementation and the effectiveness of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, and like Blair mentioned, to report back to Planning and Housing Committee upon the issuance of 200 building permits, or in Q1 of 2026, whichever comes first, and then to come forward with potential zoning bylaw changes or anything else that we think is important to try and improve the implementation and facilitate multiplex implementation. And then there's also a variety of other things that we're looking at with other city divisions and external agencies when it comes to multiplexes impacts in our neighborhoods that we'll also be reporting out on. So the multiplex methodology started off by just focusing on the first 200 building permits for multiplexes that were issued. That was the main intention. We were looking at the permit types, the multiplex types of duplex, triplex, fourplex, the location of the multiplexes, how many units, and then we were actually opening up every single building permit application drawing and looking at the dimensions of the lot. We were looking at the total residential floor area within the building. We were looking at the sizes of each unit and the number of bedrooms and the size of bedrooms whether there's a garden suite or a laneway suite on the lot, we really wanted to make sure that we could bring forward a comprehensive report back to council and to show members of the public what's happening at the ground level. But what we noticed was there were a lot more multiplex building permits in the queue that have already been issued on top of the 200 that we did the detailed review on. So we did more of a high-level assessment of an additional 230 multiplex building permits for a total of 452. And that generally is between May 2023 to November of 2024. So just getting into a little bit of the initial key findings. This is a snapshot kind of some of the key themes that we noticed from the multiplex monitoring program. So from an area specific lens, multiplexes are occurring across the whole city. But we've definitely started to see a bit of a trend in terms of clustering in certain pockets of the city of Toronto. I have some visuals to show you where that's happening. This is still kind of high level. We're working through it, but we are tracking the rents of multiplexes across the city. This isn't just limited to new multiplexes that have been constructed through the multiplex program. We're looking at new multiplexes and already existing multiplexes to see what those rents are on a square foot basis. And we're looking to try and compare that to the mid-rise and high-rise condo market to get a sense of what the affordability is like. We were looking at parking, so a lot of concern from residents is that there would be no parking associated with multiplexes. We are still seeing parking provided on site. We did notice that in the later stages of multiplex implementation, committee of adjustment activity has started to increase. The earlier stages, there was a lot more as of right multiplex development. Some of the other things like what Blair had mentioned is that there's some interpretation challenges when it comes to multiplexes going through the permit review process, and the one that comes to mind is the 2 new semi-detached buildings with more than a total of, or with 5 units or more in total between the 2 buildings getting reviewed as an apartment building. One of the best takeaways, I would say, from what we're seeing is that these multiplexes are delivering family-sized units with 2 and 3 bedrooms that are good for young families that are looking to find grade-related housing in neighborhoods. And then we're also coordinating with our other colleagues like in Toronto Water, Toronto Hydro, Solid Waste, our data department, and we've noticed that there are some challenges there, and we'll bring forward a lot more of what we're hearing in our report that comes forward in June. And then one other piece I'll just say here, one of the main things in my practice in planning, whether it's development review or multiplex monitoring, is meeting and consulting and collaborating with people in the industry. So the multiplex team, we've attended a few conferences like this. We went to the middle school housing conference. We hosted a multiplex industry workshop. We've done some site visits with applicants. So we're trying to hear as much as we can from folks who are building these multiplexes in neighborhoods, and continue to learn and collaborate as we move forward. So now we're going to nerd out a little bit. There's going to be a lot of numbers here, but I think that it's very interesting information, and I hope that you guys get a lot out of this. So we're going to go over a lot of the information that I just talked about in the methodology section. So where we can draw conclusions on the 452 permits, that'll be provided, and then where we did a detailed review on the 222, we'll see some of that as well. So from a multiplex permit breakdown between the 2 different review sets, we are seeing a relatively even distribution of multiplex types, so duplex, triplex, and fourplex. In the later stages of multiplex implementation, we did notice that duplexes became a little bit more active than fourplexes, so you could see that drop off. In terms of where the multiplexes are located, I will have a map as well, but from a ward-specific representation, we could see where they're occurring most frequently. So Ward 9, which is Davenport, of the 452, that has a total of 68 multiplexes. Then we could see Ward 4, Parkdale High Park, Ward 5, York South Weston, and Ward 11, University Rosedale, as well as Toronto Danforth, Ward 14, with a decent amount of multiplexes as well. But you could see there's some wards that just have one or two multiplexes within them. Next slide. So this is a map of the 222 multiplexes citywide. So you could see that, yeah, there's some dots across the whole city, but we are starting to see where that clustering of multiplexes is occurring within that Ward 4, Ward 9, Ward 5, sort of the former City of Toronto area. Next slide. So this is now the 452 multiplexes layered onto that same map. I think generally we could kind of draw the conclusion that the same sort of pattern and location of where multiplexes are occurring most frequently is continuing on through multiplex implementation. I think that within parts of Scarborough or Toronto East York, the East End, there's a little bit more activity in wards 19 and Ward 14 than when we saw in the first map. Next slide. So in terms of number of units that this is bringing forward, from a totality perspective, there's about almost 1,300 total units within the multiplexes. In terms of net new units, we're seeing about 726, and you could see the distribution between the different multiplex types. I know that Chris said that there's so few multiplexes being built across the city. I would also challenge that by saying there's also so few new condos or mid-rise buildings being constructed as well. It's a very difficult time in the economy. It's tough to bring those projects online, but I do think that multiplexes, missing middle housing, is actually carrying a lot of weight right now, and we're seeing a lot of these multiplexes go through the building permit process, have issued permits, and a number of these are actually already constructed as well. Next slide. So in terms of sort of like a heat map of where the units are, so correlates to where multiplexes are occurring most frequently. We could see where all of the units, sort of the density is sort of concentrated, but they're still dispersed across the rest of the city too. This is probably one of the biggest trends, key takeaways from the get-go, is that the vast majority of multiplexes are small residential permits. So those are your interior renovations or additions to existing buildings. The percentage breakdown is 75% of the 452 are small residential permits, and then just about 22% are new houses. And then also the type of property, detached, semi-detached, or townhouse. Detached properties, far and away, again, just like the small residential permits, majority of those are detached lots, and about 22% are semi-detached. The number of garden suites and laneway suites associated with a multiplex permit is being tracked. So within the 222 permits, we saw about 81% of sites did not have a garden suite or a laneway suite associated with the multiplex. There was a bit of a smaller trend starting to occur, though, where we saw some garden suites or laneway suites, and I do think that there will be some more activity with that as the city continues to look at that development charge permit sequencing challenge to try and have a fourplex and a garden suite on the same lot without getting caught up in that process at during the permit process. We're tracking the total floor area and size of multiplexes. I think this is one of the key takeaways from the monitoring process, is that on average we're seeing a unit size of 106 square meters, which is over 1,000 square feet per unit. We're often trying to use interior floor area to determine how much residential floor space there is in a multiplex, because that would include the basement, because gross floor area does not include a basement unless it's raised above a certain level. So that gives us a better sense of how much floor area there is. And in terms of that average unit size that's being delivered, it's often exceeding what the city has in terms of the growing up guidelines to review mid-rise and tall building applications, which is a very positive thing, because we're often not seeing as many 2 and 3 bedroom larger units within condos. All right, next slide. So building off of that, we're also tracking bedroom data. So in terms of a breakdown, we're seeing about 2.5 bedrooms per unit in a duplex, 2 bedrooms per unit in a triplex, 2 bedrooms per unit in a fourplex. And in terms of the average size of those bedrooms, we are seeing over 10 square meters per bedroom. Which again, if we're looking at the city's growing up guidelines, this is exceeding those sort of recommendations for ideal unit sizes for families. So this is also a great takeaway from what we're seeing through the monitoring process. There's a lot of graphs on here. So we're looking at the building permit elevation. So we're looking at roof types. The average height of multiplexes, how many stories, and then the length and depth of a multiplex. We're seeing that peaked roofs are the most common in terms of roof types, and I think that matches well with the fact that there's a lot more small residential interior renovations or addition type permits. Multiplexes, in terms of average height, it's under the 10-meter zoning bylaw maximum across most residential areas. And then in terms of a building length, we're seeing 16 meters or so, or 17 meters in depth as well. So we're seeing that multiplexes are falling sort of right around the average in terms of what's permitted, or sorry, falling right around what the zoning bylaw allows for, at least in the earlier stages of multiplex implementation. So parking is definitely going to be an interesting topic of discussion, I think, at Planning and Housing Committee in June. So at a sort of like a bird's eye view, parking is being provided on 67% of multiplex building permit applications. 32% of multiplexes don't have any parking at all. We're also looking at how many parking spaces there are associated with each permit. So the pie chart on your right shows how many times we're seeing 1 parking space, 2 parking spaces, 3 and 4 on a multiplex permit application. So, you know, we didn't expect to see a 1-to-1 ratio of parking spaces per unit. The move to remove the minimum requirement for residential parking was really meant to be a demand-focused sort of permission, and see what the demand is for parking, and let the owners of the lot make that determination. So we are still seeing parking being provided, and we also have a good visual mapping out where the parking is coordinated to transit infrastructure. I think that's on the next slide. Yeah, so again, this is based on the 222 multiplex permits. So what we did was we threw on an 800-meter radius buffer to subway stations, LRT stations, and GO stations. And the graph also shows with an X where all of the 0 parking space multiplex applications are in the city. And there's a high number of those multiplex permits that are located within the 800-meter radius of a transit station, or within proximity. But then often a lot of these other multiplexes might be located on a streetcar line, or where there might be rapid bus service as well. So there's good forms of public transportation to help support where these multiplexes are located. One of the other aspects of the monitoring program is looking at impacts to tree canopy. Using data from our urban forestry colleagues, we've seen that there's about 77% of all of the sites where there's a multiplex do not have an application in to injure or remove a tree. About 23% of sites do have those applications in. And 41 of those permits have been approved by urban forestry to injure or remove the tree, and about 11 are still under review. And then just on a map where those tree permit applications are in, we wanted to get a sense of if these applications were perhaps in any areas that are environmentally sensitive, like our ravine natural feature protection areas or natural heritage system areas, or TRCA areas. So this map just kind of demonstrates where they're located, and for the most part, they're located within the yellow neighborhood areas, not within those green open space areas. Committee of Adjustment activity is something that we're also tracking in detail. So this might come as a surprise to some people in the room. Initially, when I looked at the numbers, I was also a bit surprised, but I think it's a very positive takeaway. So of the first 222 permits that we reviewed in detail, only about 10% of those applications went to the Committee of Adjustment for specific minor variances. So 90% of those multiplexes were as of right and did not go to the Committee of Adjustment. 100% of those minor variances were all approved by the committee, either with conditions or just outright approved, with one of those applications being withdrawn. And there were no appeals on those Committee of Adjustment applications either. So because we were doing this high-level review of an additional set of building permits, we wanted to get a sense of if we just did a filtering of all multiplex applications that went to the Committee of Adjustment between May 2023 and April of 2025, are we going to see more minor variance activity that don't have building permit applications yet? Because we were focused on building permits that had been issued. So when we did that data poll, we did see that there was more minor variance activity, and it's definitely weighted more towards 2024 and 2025, so the later stages of multiplex implementation. So we saw about 290 multiplex minor variance applications. And again, yeah, this is not associated with the specifically the 452 permits, so this is at large. Oh yeah, so in terms of what the status of those applications, 73% of the 290 are approved, 15% are under review, 5% are deferred, and only 7% of the 290 are refused. So the Committee of Adjustment is definitely approving the vast majority of these multiplex applications. So just to wrap things up, where we are with next steps. So we are bringing forward draft zoning bylaw amendments. Those will be posted to the EHON webpage. I believe it will be the end of this week on Friday. The minute details will be posted online. So we are looking to bring forward a new definition for multiplexes, so detached houseplex and semi-detached houseplex. That will also play a role in helping clean up the interpretation issue with two side-by-side semis with 5 units or more, so that both of those semis can be reviewed as a multiplex and not an apartment building. We are looking to bring forward an interim approach to deal with Chapter 900 exceptions that are often more restrictive than the multiplex bylaw and resulting in multiplexes needing to go to the Committee of Adjustment where these are prevailing. We are looking to bring forward a zoning bylaw cap in terms of the maximum number of bedrooms per building. Maybe in the Q&A there'll be more discussion about that. We are looking to bring forward zoning permissions for utility infrastructure on private property. This is largely as a result of consultation with our partners in Toronto Hydro, where we know that multiplex activity is bringing forward a lot more demand and electrification, where at times there might need to be transformers on private property. So we are looking to make those permissions as of right, so you don't have to go to the Committee of Adjustment for something related to Toronto Hydro. And then there were a few other technical things that we needed to clean up from the previous multiplex bylaw that we're also accounting for. And then in June, like Blair had mentioned, the sixplex study will be bringing forward final recommendations for sixplexes citywide in detached lots. And we are anticipating that we'll be continuing sort of a version of multiplex monitoring and consolidating a lot of the sort of plex type monitoring into one basket instead of having six plexes, if that were to be adopted by council, having a monitoring program for that and a monitoring program for Ward 23 and multiplex monitoring. We want to just consolidate everything into one, because there's still some considerations from other colleagues like in Toronto Water and Solid Waste that we need to be mindful of and continue to look at. So that's where we are with next steps, and I think that wraps everything up. Thanks again.